Welcome to Transcending the Ordinary, where we pursue lives formed by Christ, not shaped by culture. Worship is more than music. That's our topic for today. Worship is more than music. One of the easiest ways to misunderstand worship is to reduce it to music. And many believers know, at least in theory, that worship is more than music. But knowing that, mentally knowing that, and actually living in that truth are two very different things. Because when worship is reduced to music, it becomes easy to confine it to a setting, a moment, or an emotional experience. It becomes something that happens during a song set, or something that happens in a church service, or even something that happens when the atmosphere feels meaningful and everything is just right. But worship is much deeper than that. Worship is about worth. It is about surrender, devotion, and it is about rightly responding to the holiness and the lordship of God. That means worship is not only revealed when music begins, it is revealed in a way a person lives when the room is quiet. It shows up in obedience. It shows up in humility, submission. And it shows up whether the life is actually arranged around God or whether God has just been added into an already self-governed life. That is an important difference. It is possible to be emotionally moved in a worship environment and still remain inwardly resistant to God. A person can cry during worship and still refuse correction. A person can sing beautifully and still live under self-rule. And a person can lead worship publicly and still be spiritually careless privately. That is why worship cannot be measured only by expression. It has to be measured by surrender. True worship is not just about what rises from the lips. It's about what bows in the heart. And I think this matters because many people have learned how to value the emotional side of worship without understanding the formative side of worship. Real worship does not just stir feelings. It reorders the life. It reminds us who God is. It reminds us who we are. And it puts things back in their rightful place. It confronts pride. It exposes idols. It weakens self-centeredness. It teaches the soul to bow to the Most High. It teaches the heart to love rightly. And it trains a person to prefer God above competing loyalties. That is why worship is not shallow, and it is not small. Worship touches what a person values, what a person trusts, what a person depends on, what they fear, and what they obey. In that sense, worship is happening all the time because people are always giving themselves to something. So, look at it this way. Everyone worships in the broad sense. The real question is, what is receiving the devotion, the trust, the love, and the allegiance? That is why worship is not only about whether a person sings, it is about whether God truly holds first place. Does God govern the decisions? Does He govern the priorities? Does He govern the inner life? Does the person live with the posture that God is worthy not just of a song, but of the whole life? That is where worship becomes much more searching, because it moves the conversation away from preference and into surrender. It is no longer just about, did I enjoy worship? It becomes, is my life responding rightly to the worth of God? that question goes deeper. And for worship leaders especially, this matters greatly. Because leading worship is not just about creating a beautiful atmosphere. It is about helping people respond to God truthfully and reverently. It is about carrying the weight of His worth with sincerity and being aligned privately with the God being sung about publicly. That requires more than talent. It requires integrity, humility, spiritual sobriety, and a life that is not just gifted, but yielded. And that applies beyond platform ministry too. Every believer is called into a life of worship, not a life of occasional spiritual expression, but a life of devotion. A life where obedience is worship, where trust is worship, where holiness is worship. A life where gratitude is worship, surrender is worship, and where the heart continues to return to God, not because the music is present, but because He is worthy. So when we say worship is more than music, that should not remain a slogan. It should become a lens. A person should begin to ask themselves, what does my life say God is worth to me? What governs me when no one sees? Where am I expressive before God, but not surrendered to Him? Where have I confused atmosphere with consecration? Those are weighty questions, but they're necessary. Because God is not looking for songs alone. He is after lives that actually declare His worth. And worship becomes real when it is not just about something participated in for a moment, but something embodied as a way of life. There's a popular worship song that talks about how God desires more than the heart of worship. And this particular song was written by Matt Redman. And then the lyrics say, when the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within. Through the way things appear, you're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, where it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. Amen. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me once again. Until next time, stay rooted in truth, stay yielded to Christ, and keep transcending the ordinary.